Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday night. It's not Friday night. Maybe it is for some people, but not for us. We are back. It's been months since we've been here for many reasons that I won't go into today, but it's really nice to be live back with everybody else. And today we're going to be talking about Ecamm's new dual mode that has been released with the actual real version, the non-beta version that we've been testing for a few months now. We've got a few people here as well who's joined us and wants to see more about what dual mode is capable of and all that stuff. But first of all, as ever, let's bring in the maestro, Mr. Martin McKenna. Welcome back to this show.
Good to be back. Hello, everybody out there in Radio Land.
It's been a while, hasn't it? Let me just pause this other thing here. Got too many screens going on in the background. So how you doing, Martin? What's it like in Edinburgh? No more snow, I hope.
Well, we had snow last week, so it wasn't meant to snow, but it did quite heavily. So it's still chilly here, unfortunately. However, in a couple of weeks' time, I'm off to Mallorca.
Oh.
So hopefully we don't get that reversal of weather, whether it's warmer in Edinburgh than in Mallorca in 2 weeks' time, because that doesn't go down well.
No, exactly. Hopefully not. I mean, they've had a few storms out there and stuff, but hopefully that's good. Well, today we've got a few people joined us already. Let's take a quick hello. Saeed. Why is that over there? Let me just move this.
So you can tell it's been a couple of months, can't you? Before
can't even get this working right now, can we? I'll just put it here for now because it's a little bit messed up, but it doesn't matter. So hello, Saeed. Thanks for joining us. Yes, excited for dual mode. Great. And I saw Mac joining as well. Hello, Marianne. And we've got Dragon. Yeah, everybody's here excited about dual mode. So let me tell you about what dual mode is, and then Mr. McKenna will get himself up and running. So Ecamm has released this new version of the software. It's not Ecamm Live anymore. It's called Ecamm. So there's been a few changes, a few logo changes, all that kind of stuff. So this logo is, not that relevant anymore. But dual mode is really allowing you now to go to two different aspect ratios to your social platforms. So for example, in YouTube, we could be going now in horizontal and vertical mode. And you have these choices within Ecamm that allow you to go to vertical mode and horizontal mode to different platforms. So for example, we could just be going to vertical in Instagram and going in widescreen on YouTube. Now, other platforms have had this for a while. OBS has had a plugin that allows you to do that. StreamYard is doing it now, even Restream. So it's really important, I think, for Ecamm also to have the ability to go live in these two formats. And why should you do it? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, for additional reach. Some people in your audience may only want to be watching you in the vertical format, so you can construct your scenes and workflows to adhere to that particular aspect ratio. For repurposing as well, there's a lot of people that use Ecamm just for recording their content. And before you would take a widescreen like this, you'd then have to put it into Opus Clips or another application and then repurpose it in that particular way. With this new version, and the fact that you can actually record both vertical and horizontal at the same time, means that the repurposing, editing workflow and time frame is cut down a lot less. So there's lots of reasons why you want to go into both modes in vertical and horizontal, but just because you can doesn't necessarily mean that you should. So depending on you and what you do as a business and how you want to present your content, you've got many options now to do that. So what we wanted to talk about today is really some of the things to consider when you are building out your scenes in dual mode. Some of the gotchas in terms of where the placement should be, what is good practice with regards to putting stuff in your respective scenes, and not everything that you will put in your vertical format is going to fit in the horizontal and vice versa. So it all depends on how you want this set up. And Martin has created a wonderful profile to go through and show you all on how to set that up. And we've got some little links and things for you later so you can grab yourself your own copy and so on. So I think Martin is ready. He's patiently waiting for me to shut up and get on with the demo. So Martin, let me just go over to you and we'll start this demo. And please keep the questions going. We'll put some comments in. Martin, if you want to just pause throughout your demo so we can maybe just take some questions from the audience. But over to you, sir.
we can do that. So first things first, I think, irony of irony. Anybody who is looking for the vertical format of this show today, you're not going to find it, because we are streaming in ultra wide in Ecamm, and that's really so there's enough room on this screen here for me to show you live demo mode, which includes the 16:9, the 9:16, and the scenes and overlays window as well. If you can imagine trying to cram all of that into the vertical, it ain't going to work. And at present, in terms of the dual format, you are streaming in 16:9 and 9:16, so we can't do ultra wide and vertical at the same time. So that's why we're in this format, and that's the irony. You're not going to actually see anything in the vertical format, but you want to keep your eye on mainly on that side of the screen, because that's the bit that we're concerned with in terms of layout and stuff like that. So hopefully I've got a few scenes set up in order to sort of demo some of the gotchas of playing about with the two different formats. So I'm just going to start off with a little countdown scene. And this is all a bit of a work in progress. But what you'll see from this countdown scene, if you look carefully, is that in the centre of the screen is what is replicated on the right hand side in the vertical mode. So if I take that rectangle off again, put it back on, you can see that the video is just the centre area of the video that is duplicated on the other side of the scene.
Your music was a little bit loud in that one, Martin. Sorry, it was a little bit loud.
Was it a bit loud?
Yeah, a little bit loud. Yeah, I could hear part of it, but not everything. So we couldn't hear Martin, unfortunately. So
okay, okay. So what I was saying through the loud music, which we should have tested beforehand, shouldn't we? Really, is that if you drop a video or anything in the background in all scenes, then what's going to happen automatically in Ecamm is that in the vertical scene you will get the center of the screen only. So if it's a video, you'll get the center of the video, and if it's a picture, you're just going to get the center of the picture when you drop it into the background. So that's the way it's meant to work. You can have a totally different background if you want to on your vertical canvas, but you'll have to copy that into every single scene if you want a complete background image. So in my case, I don't want to do that for every scene. So what I have done is just drop stuff into the background and make sure that the center element still looks all right in the vertical and in the horizontal. So one of the things, if we focus on the vertical side of things for the moment, one of the things to look out for is that your phone is not the same size as the vertical aspect ratio. So the vertical aspect ratio being 1080 by 1920, your phone is not that ratio. Your phone is actually taller and thinner. So what you're seeing on the phone is what I have now put two black lines down either side of the image. That is what you will see on your phone. It will crop either side. So just be very, very aware that your phone's going to do that, and that is all phones from, in terms of iPhones anyway, from about iPhone 9 onwards. So if you've got a 5 to an 8, then it still is the 1080 by 1920 aspect ratio. All the others are thinner. Nearly every phone on the market is thinner. There's some odd bod ones out there for gamers and things that do things wide. But the only way you're going to see that whole 1920 by 1080 at any point normally is if you're watching on a big screen and it's in vertical, which is not really the point of things. So what I have noticed a lot of people doing is completely ignoring this and filling the whole screen with their design. So earlier today I seen a well-known character who will remain unnamed designing stuff for the vertical, and this is the design that they put up for the vertical. So it kind of looks all right as it is, but if you then consider the two lines either side of you, then that's what you start to see on your phone. So it crops off all of the edges on the phone, and also at the top area above my cap here, you might get the phone bezel, you might get your battery, you might get a little search icon or other icons, but you get all sorts of different trash sitting in that top area there. So Ecamm itself has got an option to turn on safe zones in vertical. It's under the options menu. It's very subtle, but it does actually obey that top line here and the bottom line for where things are safe. It doesn't tell you about the left and the right. I don't know why. I have mentioned it to Ken and Glenn, but thus far it doesn't do it. But as you can see from that image, it's not particularly useful on the phone to go cutting things off on the left and the right. Other things that you need to be aware of. So here's me on my phone, and if again I bring in the left and the right, you can see that all of these thumbs and thumbs up, thumbs down, comments and everything is appearing on the bottom half of the screen. So if you put yourself on the whole screen, you will get everything jumping all over you on a live, and in particular the comments there are really coming right up to my chin on that particular image on the phone. So that's not really a particularly good look or feel. Even on things like LinkedIn, it will give you the title of the show below, and then it will put in all of the text version of you speaking as well in that bottom half. So unless you don't care that you're being completely swamped by all these different elements, you're going to want to avoid those areas of the screen as well. So something else that I've noticed people doing is, even when they've realized that there is a limit for the phone, they push stuff right to the edge of that limit. And when you do that, if you imagine again, this is on your phone, to me it just doesn't look right. So both of the images are pushed right to the edge of the phone, but they've got corner edges on the images which are almost clipping off. The text is pushed right to the edge of the phone. To me that doesn't look good, and I don't like the fact that there's a gap between two people and not evenly spaced all around. So if you are going to do that, then I would tend to suggest that what you want to do is just ignore all of the lovely rounded things and just push everything right to the edge of that phone. So the phone, this is the biggest the images are possibly going to get on the phone, but then bring your text down a little bit so as it fits in nicely. Or better still, why not just leave a bit of space all around you. And if I can bring those two bars back in, you'll see when I'm doing things, what I've done is I've left a gap either side of me so that I fit nicely onto the screen, and also I've allowed a little bit of space so all of those thumbs and things like that, which tend to appear on the right hand side of your phone, they're not going to get in the way. So I've created my own sort of safe zone which looks something like this for the majority of platforms, and I do say the majority of platforms. If you're one of those people who goes to TikTok, the safe zone is something more like that. So it's tiny on TikTok. Fortunately for me, I never stream to TikTok, so it's not a big issue. But you can get plenty on the screen. So I'm just going to flick through some of the scenes that I've got set up in this profile, albeit they're a bit of a work in progress. There's a few of them that need tweaking. And here's a good example, and that's me doing a little screen share alongside my image. I don't like that at all. I think the screen share is far too small, and I think there are better ways to do that, but we'll come back to that in a minute. But there's plenty of room for multiple people and comments, and still be able to have enough room for your branding, knowing that it's not going to be run over by all of the comments and the thumbs ups and the things like that that are going on. So up to 3 people here, 3 people with some comments coming in, up to 4 people, no problem with 4 people at all. You can even go pretty small and have little images on the screen with bigger text for your comments, and it's worth thinking about that because people are going to be wanting to read your comments. You don't necessarily have to be big on the screen at that point. You can still see little me's down there. We could have the same sort of principle with active speaker. So here I've got my speakers in black and white down the bottom, but the coloured speaker in the active speaker box there, they're going to appear full colour, and that is so that I am taking away the emphasis from me and focusing on the active speaker. In terms of generic layout for screen shares, I think I would rather have a square screen share layout. So let's just bring in the square screen share layout. Waiting for Ecamm to catch up now, being as I've got a spinning wheel.
Oh, that's never a good idea. Whilst you're waiting for the spinning wheel, just a couple of good comments here. And please let me know your actual name. Sorry if I'm forgetting your names. Yeah, there really isn't a lot of real estate in the end, which is really important that I think people do forget. Even like you've mentioned with TikTok, where if for real data, real images that you want to put on there, it is so tiny compared to Instagram, for example, and it's shrinking and shrinking. I know there's a lot of sort of controls and things around here, so I think people are really sort of interested at that, where you can actually put these overlays, and yeah, these designs do look great overall. But I think it takes a little bit of care and attention to make sure that you actually have these placeholders in the right areas. And Homesick Mike was saying, so many valuable tips with the verticals, because the way that you've shown those black lines just helps people visualize what you can actually get on there. But I do like this scene in particular because that's quite good that you can have that square aspect ratio as a screen share, definitely.
Yeah, and I think, let me just see if that's going to disappear and reappear again. No, that's me just showing the phone there, the phone size. So even when I bring in my black bars for the phone there, there's still plenty of room for that bit of video. So it's come back this time. So that could be a square video, and the reason I've chosen square is because that's one of the formats that's largely available. So if you go to most tools, they will do square video or landscape or tall. They don't do 4:3 in most packages. So good for video, but you could also use that for PowerPoint or keynote presentations. So a lot of people won't be aware, but you can change the size of your deck to anything you want. So if you want to change it to square, then that could be a mini PowerPoint deck or keynote deck in your vertical, and it's perfectly readable. That is easily readable on the phone. It also could be a Streamer Live session as well. So Streamer Live is available in Square as well. So we could have our spinning globe of the world with people arriving on Streamer Live, or the word cloud interactions, or bar charts, or anything else that we wanted to work with Streamer Live. We can have it in Square. And that means that one overlay can be used for multiple different purposes, for video, for screen sharing, for Streamer Live, all the same. It's pretty much the same format, and I think it still fits in there with as many as 4 people down at the bottom there. I could even have 8 people down at the bottom there. And previously, when we've done lives, we've filled up the whole screen with mini versions of people. So we've gone right to the max and had, I think, 10 guests plus me plus active speakers, so up to 12. And they become small tiles, but what you do is the trick there is you just keep one tile available that's bigger, and then get the person you want to be the active speaker to drop into the single bigger tile. So I quite like the look of that. Other things to note here, if I come back to my solo scene, and I don't think you're going to be able to see this very well, but let me just tell you what's going on anyway. So on the right hand side, if we look at the scenes window, I've created a folder for horizontal, and I've created a folder for vertical, and that's just to keep all the assets neat and tidy. So in the horizontal folder, I have got my logos, I've got my names, in this case just one name plus a little bit of background for that, and I've got my cameras, and I've just kept them all in nice folders and then repeated those folders for the vertical and the horizontal. And the reason for putting things in these folders, for me anyway, is that if somebody comes to use this profile, then it's easy for them. They know they're going to have to change the logos in the logo folder. They know they're going to have to go and change the names in the name folder. They know they're going to have to go and change the text in the text folder. So they know where things are. They're easy to find and they're easy to change. So it's fairly self-explanatory, really. But it's very important to keep your housekeeping in order, because you will forget which item belongs on which scene. There's no easy way to do that. Although there's some nice features for right-clicking and then putting objects on both scenes and stuff like that. We're not going to do that today, but there are some different options for doing that. Here what I'm doing is I'm just changing my backgrounds as well. If you looked very carefully when I got everything set up in the scenes, if you could possibly see it, there's all sorts of things going on in the background here, which I can switch on or off, and that's going to change the way that my scene looks. So I've got multiple different elements in the background, and this is just for me to be able to manipulate and change that profile easily. So I can even, for instance, bring in a color rectangle, and if I bring in a color rectangle, then I can get that to start to change everything for me, or blur everything for me in different areas. So if I just take off that background loop, you can see what was there before, and that's just blending in with the background there. So work in progress, a few little tweaks to be done, as I mentioned, but essentially this is the sort of thing that the profile will look like when it comes out. You can go and drop your own backgrounds in. There's going to be 3 or 4 animated loops as well that you can use for countdowns and transitions, or to sit in the background as I've got here. There are other profiles out there. If you want something clean and simple, then Livestream Pros are doing some clean and simple stuff. I don't really do clean and simple. I do complicated and
fancy,
using every feature possible.
Well, why not?
So it's each to their own, but that's pretty much all I've got to show you for today.
There's a couple of comments and questions though that if you just keep on here just for a second, because it might be worth showing a couple of things. So yeah, Saeed was saying, so vertical content is only for audio now. I think relating to the fact that, there's not a lot of space. I think what you've shown here is what's possible. What's important is to be mindful of the content that you're actually putting out there. And at the end of the day, what is your vertical audience actually looking for, if you do have an audience that's on vertical? If it's just a talking head with some comments coming in and a few pieces of text, then the one that you're showing right now on the vertical side, I think would definitely lend itself to that, to be decent. I mean, that's watchable. You've got all the nonsense at the bottom of the platforms. That's not going to interfere in that particular scene with your actual content. So I think that works well. So Rob from Australia, thank you for joining us, Rob. Let me just click on this. Was asking about live reacting. I think that's like a Streamer Live workflow. I'm not familiar with it, but a lot of these platforms now are allowing you to have square and 16:9 aspect ratios. And even if you don't have that, you can easily see here that you could fit a 16:9 aspect ratio overlay into this vertical scene. I think that would still work. Square is better because you get more in there. But again, even on Streamer Live, not all the visualization styles lend itself to working well, I think, in the square format. Most of them are okay, like the globe and the wonder worlds and some of the poles, but there's a few things that don't sit well. So anyway, that's worth noting. I don't know whether you got any comments on the sort of visualizations, Martin. It's not something I'm familiar with that particular one that Rob mentioned, but
I don't know that one that Rob has mentioned, but certainly within Streamer Live, you've got other things as well, like the winning wheel as well. So that works well in the vertical. So I would say most of it works well in the vertical. If we look at the vertical at the moment, as it's sitting there, I'm in 16 by 9 effectively in that vertical. So that would be the 16 by 9 sort of maximum size available in vertical. So that's why I prefer the square, because it's almost double the size, really, the square. But not every tool will do things in square, but most of them will. So I would certainly look at that. 4x3 is another option.
Yeah.
If you were doing PowerPoints, that also is better, I think, than the full wide version. But yeah, it depends what you're trying to display, really. If there's a lot on it, just forget it.
Definitely,
it's not going to work.
So we've got a question from Ed. Hi, Ed. Thanks for joining us. During some of your transitions, it looks like using a video stinger or some form of transition overlay. I think that's what the term. Did you create those yourself in Ecamm, or are you using some magic tools to do those? And I think because when you were switching from one scene to another, there was a little bit of a flash or a transition or something. Maybe you could explain a little bit about what you're doing with those.
Yeah, so essentially, those are little AI created videos. So I created them using AI. I then convert them to WebM format, and the reason for that is WebM format works with profiles. So I can send you a profile, it will have a WebM file in. If I send you in a profile with a movie file, it won't work. The movie file does not go with the profile. So that's why I need to change them. But I have used a couple of different programs. I have used Veed, I've used Kittle, and depending on what I'm trying to do, I use different programs. So where I've got this loop here going on with the ribbon down the bottom, that I've used Kittle for, because the AI allows me to create an image as a starting image and an image as a finishing image, which are both the same. So I know that I get starting image, animation, finishing image, so I get a complete loop. Other ones I don't need it to do that. However, quite a lot of the ones I like to have the whole loop, because I can then run it for 10 seconds, I can run it for a minute, I can run it as a countdown, I can run it as a transition. So with the transition, it will just do, a flash of shapes and then maybe some text in the middle of it, which you can add in Ecamm. So yes, the transition is happening in Ecamm, and the way you do that is that you run a countdown timer for, let's say, 5 seconds. You come onto the scene, countdown timer's running for 5 seconds, but it is invisible, and when it finishes, you move to the next scene. So the impression you get is that stinger type effect going on, and I like that effect. I think it's a good one, and it's easy to pop on a bit of text on the stinger as well within Ecamm that maybe says guest time or next up or something like that. So that's how that works.
Thanks for that. So Rob was saying that housekeeping is something he really needs to work on. Housekeeping can be a bit of a minefield, especially when it comes to these vertical and horizontal scenes. Keeping them in separate folders is gold, because especially when you start dragging and dropping, especially with other applications as well, but Ecamm is really guilty of this, where it's a copy, and then you can get really sort of bogged down with the same name and it's a copy of a copy. So renaming your assets, your overlays, is key. Putting them in folders is important as well. And then it's an easy distinction between, well, what information have I got in vertical versus horizontal? And I think you pointed out quite rightly that you don't necessarily have to have the same stuff in both, right? Because you shouldn't try and cram everything in the vertical side just because you've got it in the horizontal layout. Because as we've seen, space is a premium, and you really only want to have information in the vertical side that's important and valuable to your audience. Anything else can be removed. If it's branding, background's fine, but obviously don't clutter it, because it becomes very distracting. And with a very small aspect ratio, you're only looking at a phone. And I'm old. I have the iPhone Pro Max, but I have a friend who's got the small iPhone. I can't even read that thing. It's way too small for me now. So, I'll never go back to that. Saeed mentioned early on, I think, that the aspect ratio for the Android phone, I think the Android Pixel, or the Google Pixel, sorry, is 20:9, which is a weird aspect ratio. But yeah, so everyone's slightly different. So the vertical format is going to render differently on there. A few other questions as well. So that's for another topic. The difference between Ecamm and OBS. Well, OBS is 100% free, and you can do pretty much what we're seeing here today in OBS that you can in Ecamm. It just depends on your level of competency. And, we've got Saeed in the house, who's a master at OBS. Things that you can do in that product is fantastic. So again, just depends on your time and your workflow and the effort you want to put in there. Homesick Mac is saying that he's getting wild here. Calculating the remaining space in vertical mode, needs to claim at least three camera angles in the guitar playing, 2 hands and a headshot. And I think you could actually do some funky camera movements in vertical. So remember, in Ecamm, you can have a nested folder, and that's on a timer. And then that timer can have 3 cameras, placeholders inside of that folder. And then as you're building that folder up, it can actually start to cycle through the different cameras. So as we're watching this vertical now, Martin, for example, could have had 3 different camera angles in the vertical space, all nested in a folder. And when you switch the timer on, it's just going to automatically cycle through those camera angles within that folder. So that's another great way of potentially using the vertical space to effect where you can flip out. And Martin's done some fancy things where he's actually flipped the cameras round when you've had either a circle or like 3 cameras in a particular place. And I don't think you can show that now, right? That's a little bit too much to ask, but hopefully that explains it.
No, I can't show that right now, but I think for that particular use case, what would be very useful is to have, let's say, 3 small tiles and then 1 bigger one, and it's have a Stream Deck button that's swapped between them, and you can get some really cool transitions now using live motion to get it to kind of flip over and then flip between the different ones, and it looks really cool. So you could put that in a timed folder, as you mentioned, or you could have it on a Stream Deck button that said, right, I'm showing the left hand off the guitar at the moment. I'll flick that so it's bigger, but you can still see the other elements in the smaller windows, and then I'll flick another button and it's going to bring up the right hand of the guitar, whatever it happens to be. But I think there is enough room, if you're clever with what you're doing, to sort of rotate those images around in the smaller format. And I think it is key to do that. If you permanently get everything the same size, which is something that a lot of people are doing. I'm seeing they put 1 box here, 1 box here, the same size all the time. It just looks quite dull, and everything will look exactly the same. So just to have a little creativity, and maybe, as Neil mentioned, put 3 circles and then a square above them, and the circles are rotating and moving one at a time, and then up to the big one. Or we had something like that with a timer going on, where everybody got 30 seconds to say their bit, and then the timer sort of progressed and people moved over and then up to the top image, and then down and then over and then up to the top image.
Absolutely.
And you make it a bit game showy even from that perspective.
Especially in days like we're in a time now where attention is key, and not saying that you should do this flashy stuff for the sake of it, but obviously that's a little bit more eye-catching to have some motion or something going on within that vertical space compared to having just a static or multiple images that look the same, as Martin mentioned. Lots of questions and comments. I'll try and get through these. Top tip from Saeed. Yes, in the Elgato Marketplace, Ed, this is one for you. There are a number of free sort of track mat transitions. So there's got alpha channels in them, so you could potentially use those with Ecamm. There's a lot of free good stuff on the Elgato Marketplace. They have music, some overlays, some graphics and things like that. Definitely worth checking them out. Thank you, Mac, or Dragon, for saying that. Yes, smash that like button, as the kids say. Let's have a look. There's going to be no OBS bashing at all. Before you give it a like, it's a safe zone here. Said, we like OBS, don't get me wrong. I mean, it just depends on what you use. Rob was saying the trick with the timer for the transition is great. Trying to work out how to do that. I set my timer to 1 second so I can manually trigger each time. You can do that as well. You can trigger it with the Stream Deck. You can also be really funky and put a randomized timer on there. So you can have a randomized timer and say, I want to change my scene between, like, say, 5 and 30 seconds, and then have it randomly pick a scene within that folder that it's going to go to. You know, just keep everybody guessing, including yourself. Tanya, we've got a question. Your image suddenly blurred. I wonder what changed. That could be probably just the internet getting a little bit funky on my side, and YouTube trying to downgrade the actual stream, but I'm sure that's okay now. If you like OBS, you'll love Ecamm. Again, you know. Neil, how do you make these avatars square when you brought up is comment? Actually, that's a good point. I've been asked that question before. Like, sometimes the avatar on the comments are square and sometimes they're round. I'm actually bringing the comments in via Restream. And I think it's the Restream relay that does something where Ecamm is talking to the connector, the API within Restream, and I think it's doing something with that. I haven't changed it. It's round if I bring in a normal overlay comment, and it seems to be square when I bring it into Restream. That's the only thing I can think of. Our overlays are clear again. Rob said he tried OBS, couldn't get his head around the naming system. Ecamm was brilliant on day one. And again, there's a little bit of a learning curve with any software. People have said to me, I've opened up Ecamm, it's got 30 windows. I don't know what I'm doing with it. It's too complicated. So again, spend some time with the products. You know, at the end of the day, if you're a Mac user, you can use Ecamm, you can use OBS. There's Meld Studio as well. Meld is in between OBS, I think, and Ecamm in terms of simplicity is the wrong term, but in terms of making things a little bit easier as a lower barrier to entry for people, Meld has a lot of the things that OBS needs in terms of plugins already built in. It's not as comprehensive as OBS, and there's some videos that we've done. We've already had the CEO of Meld Studio on this channel. They've done a lot since we've had him on there, and I think Saeed can also talk a little bit about Meld Studio because I know he's played with that as well. You've got a Mac M4 Max. You've got a good system there. So yeah, and as Homesick Mac has said as well, Ecamm do have offers as well. They have Black Friday deals. They have all kinds of things on there. So if you think it's a bit expensive at the moment, I think it. Alec Johnson puts it well. It's $1 a day. It's about $300 odd a year. So if you think about it of $1 a day, you can't get a Starbucks cheaper than $5 these days, or petrol. Let's not mention that. What else? Let's have a see. Interesting. I know you can bring up a Zoom comment. It'll be square. Yeah, I think it's definitely Restream that's doing some of this as well. One other question: incredible advantage for Ecamm over OBS is the paying customer I can nag, ask for support. Yeah, I think, to be fair to the OBS community, there's such a large community out there now in terms of what's available, that you are going to get answers, I think, from the community. It's got a huge community, and Saeed can testify to that. Let's have a see. Off topic, but do you find Restream pings the YouTube chat faster often than Ecamm program? Find that Ecamm lags with comments. I don't know, actually, because I'm bringing in the Restream comments into Ecamm now, so I can't compare at the moment. But there you go. Love OBS got a lot to do with Ecamm. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, we did have. I mean, I was watching something where they were using StreamAlive, and it was very, very evident that Zoom was being used, and that StreamAlive was going through YouTube and across the world, and comments were coming in at all sorts of different times when, you know, answers to comments were popping up before I'd heard what the question was and things like that. So yeah, there's definitely latency going on with comments.
Definitely. Let's just change this up as well. Everything needs to be square now, because it doesn't look right if it's not. We've got square comments, we've got square there, we've got square there. So let's make it like that. It's a bit better. Right. So Martin, let's keep the questions coming, everybody. So is everybody familiar with with how to actually get this working on Ecamm. You need the latest version of Ecamm or Ecamm Beta, and you have got a setting in Ecamm that you can actually switch between dual mode and single mode. And quite rightly, Martin did point out that at the moment, because of the way that the canvas is built on Ecamm, you can't have this extra wide screen, which I like personally for YouTube. It actually renders terribly, I've just noticed, on Substack. So I won't be using Substack with widescreen. But at the moment, dual mode isn't supported if you have the 2:1 aspect ratio as this is, or widescreen. And this is 2880 by 1440, just to give you an idea of the actual pixel ratio for this. So if you do want to use just the dual mode, you will have to be restricted, which is fine. And there's nothing wrong with 16:9. You can get anything in there and it looks fine, as you can see here, with that mode. And I think there's two modes in the vertical side. There's 1080p, so it'll be 1080 by 1920, and then it'll be 1280 by 720. So there's two modes for that as well, depending on if you want to broadcast at that. And within Ecamm, just like many other products, you've got the ability to actually stream directly from Ecamm and multi-stream. You don't need a proxy like Restream. I'm using it because of my internet, and I haven't got the fastest internet in the world, and it's much easier to pair channels with Restream and things like that. Dragon's asking a question or commenting about the comments. Is dependent on the live stream settings. Yeah, so latency normal, ultra low as well. The normal will give you 20-second delay. That's correct. The only other thing as well is if you are I think if you are broadcasting in 4K, then you're not going to get if you change to ultra low latency, one of those settings will permit you from actually streaming in a certain resolution. So just keep that in mind. It's all on Google's YouTube site for that as well. Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, it's worth noting a couple of bits of behaviour as well. So when we finish this, if we were recording it, Ecamm will give us two recordings. It will give one for the vertical canvas and one for the horizontal, so that therefore suddenly your repurposing becomes easier. If we go to stream to LinkedIn or YouTube, you can choose to go to vertical or horizontal or both. So in YouTube, it will create two instances, one in the vertical, one in the horizontal. LinkedIn will do the same thing, but it's a bit bizarre because when you are live in the vertical, it will look terrible on your phone because it's just going to look like a tiny little window with a vertical thing in the middle on your phone. It'll look terrible. But once the live has finished on LinkedIn, it kind of re-renders it. So if you go and have a look at something that was live yesterday, let's say, on your phone, suddenly it comes out beautifully on the phone. In fact, far better, I would say, than any other format, because there's nowhere near the amount of garbage over the top on LinkedIn. So it's just a weird one. Maybe one day they'll allow you to stream live vertically and it show on your phone vertically. I can't see why they don't do that already, but they don't.
So, they don't, no.
But don't think it's disappeared and it's terrible.
No.
Go back and have a look at your live afterwards. It is the strangest thing.
Cool. Well, there's a few more things to go through just before we've got about another 15 minutes. So please keep the questions coming on vertical mode and so on. Martin, if you want to go back to your normal mode, I'll bring you back a second. Martin has got this profile getting ready. And we've got Scott in the house. Hi, Scott. Thanks for joining us. We've got a few more things to go through in a second. So basically, we've got Martin's got this profile. So he's tweaking it as we speak. So just as a quick CTA, and there is a link in the description, you can get yourself a copy of this profile. If you just go to if you scan the QR code or go to that link, golivenow.kit.com/, that weird number, but it is in the, it'll be in the chat as well, and also in the description of this video, then you can get yourself a copy of that when it comes out. It's just a wait list because obviously Martin's got to build it first, and then that will be available for purchase. Scott says, don't get him started on LinkedIn streaming. We won't, Scott. We know it's
too late.
Yeah, too late. Let me just see if I can make that a little bit bigger. It doesn't. Yeah, okay. So I wanted to Go on, Martin. Have you got something to say real quick before I...
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is a paid-for profile, guys. There's a lot of work that goes into it. It also costs me a lot of money in AI credits to create something. So, yeah, paid-for profile. I know that a lot of people think everything should be free, but I had to take my store down last year because it was costing me way more to put the store up than it was for revenue coming in. I did go down the route of people can pay just whatever they want. 98% of people paid nothing. 1% of people paid $1. And then 1% of people did give reasonable amounts. However, that wasn't enough to pay for the rent of the store, effectively. So,
yeah,
that's where we are at the moment.
Of course.
This sort of profile will take weeks for you to put together if you try and do it yourself.
Absolutely. Let us know in the chat where everybody's from as well. I've got a quick announcement as well something else I've been working on. It's a fun day and so on. And Martin says, "How dare you want to make a living?" Saeed says, "Martin, you shouldn't even consider that." I love Saeed's biggest F word, which is free. But I know sometimes, he had a great post the other day. Something on the lines of, let me do all this work for you so you can basically get all this stuff for free and not make a living, or something like that. It was a great quote that Saeed said. So I've been working on an app, and I think Rob in the chat has also already just commented on that. So thanks, Rob, for looking at it. So I've been working on an app that solves a little bit of a problem with Ecamm at the moment. So as you know, if you are a person that, like Martin, that has got about 3 million profiles in your Ecamm system, it's not the easiest to actually administer them. Ecamm does provide you with a mechanism to actually view all of them in a huge long list, as we know, but you have to then go and delete them separately and things. So I've created this little app. It's actually just gone on sale today. There's a YouTube video about it as well. It's low ticket item. It's only $12. But I thought I'd share this with you real quick just to show you, and I'll do a full video on it later. This is really about dual mode, but I just wanted to show you real quick. So this is the app. It's called the Ecamm Profile Manager. And I built this myself with the help of Claude. So again, I've used quite a few Claude credits to get this built. This is my Ecamm profile that I've got at the moment. So what it's showing you here is a full list of all the profiles that I've got on Ecamm, and it's consuming around 65 megabytes at the moment. There's 43 active profiles. You can see all of them here. You can actually do a quick search.
That's nothing.
I know. I'm not gonna. When you do yours, it'll be fun. So you can do a search, so you can find it by name. So I'm looking at all the Creative Amplifiers ones here. You can just select one, hit delete, and it will move it to trash immediately. You can get an information about it as well. If you'll notice, I've just recently added this, and it tells you whether it's in dual mode or single mode canvas. The dual mode canvas, if I just do get rid of the sharing and thing, you can basically see dual mode is shown by this little icon here, the default show. It's got a little icon, which is the iPhone and the desktop. And if you click on that, it says it's a dual mode profile. So you can tell now whether the profile is dual mode or not. If you're not very good at naming them, as I know a lot of people are, that's the case. So this app will allow you to search your profiles, delete them as well. If you go to Insights, it's going to show you all the profiles that are under 1 megabyte, profiles that are between 1 and 5 megabytes, and larger profiles over 5 meg. And if you click on them, it'll actually search and show you these are the profiles and the physical size, how much they are in terms of how much space they're taking up. So you can do back show all as well. There's an all-important backup button, so it'll back up all your profiles to a folder on your desktop. But it took me a little bit to work out this. And when you start the app up, it's going to use a default location, which is your hidden library folder. These files are all in something called plists, which are binary files. They're not human readable. You have to have a decode for them, and that's the way that I've used this app to go into the profiles, read them, and then it can determine the name, the size, the last modified, all that good stuff. So if you want to search for your profiles by the newest, largest, or last modified, you can do that as well. So anyway, a little bit of work gone into that. love you if you could support me and download the app and let me know if there's anything that you want me to add to that. But a little bit of work gone into doing that and so on. So hopefully it make your lives a bit easier. Until Ken and Glenn add that to the Ecamm app, at least it's something there that you can play with. Let's see what else.
Super useful.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's just have a few questions. So Homesick Mike is saying, planning to go live on LinkedIn. Need to do some reading, I guess. Not really. We have a course that's still available, I think, on how to go live on LinkedIn. It's not as complicated as that. There are some changes coming with LinkedIn, though. So, Martin, do you know what those changes are off the top of your head? So Matt can...
Yeah. Well, the biggest one is that you won't be able to go live instantaneously. You will have to schedule everything, which is not a big deal, I don't think, but that's the main change that they have made. But once those changes come into force, which may well be in LinkedIn's normal style, it's probably going to be rolled out all randomly across the world based upon when you initially joined LinkedIn. That's my understanding for most of their rollouts, is that you get a secret number behind the scenes when you join LinkedIn, and that's what determines when you get LinkedIn updates.
Yeah.
So I am waiting to see what happens with that update. Allegedly, there are some other functionality coming in alongside that, so we'll wait and see.
Question from Florence. Hi, Florence. Thanks for joining us. Have you created a grid for the vertical side design? Maybe you joined us a bit late. Martin was going through some of his product before and showing you some of the guides, but maybe you could explain that a little bit, Martin.
Yeah, so I think on Ecamm itself, there is an option to just press a button and it will show you some horizontal guidelines, which are fairly reasonable. You need to stay in those horizontal guidelines to be safe. But what happens is, because of the phone aspect ratios for most phones, apart from ones that Saeed knows about, all the iPhones are taller and thinner than the aspect ratio of 1080 by 1920. So the left hand and right hand side of the screen are gone as soon as you go onto a phone. So a strip down either side of the screen, just avoid that altogether. And yes, there is, in my profile, there is something that shows you that.
Good stuff. Thank you for that, Scott. That's very kind of you. I wouldn't go as far to say that we're LinkedIn streaming pros. I think we've just fought with the product to get it working. And as you quite rightly mentioned, I use Restream. I find Restream a bit easier to navigate, but I think you can easily create and schedule your live streams using Ecamm and go live to LinkedIn, so it's not too bad. Good question here from Dragon. Yes, I'm not sure what that number is, Martin. You've got a gazillion different scenes in some of your profiles and so on. But the question is there a number of scenes when a profile will start lagging? It all depends, just from my opinion, and I'll let Martin speak. It all depends on the size of the profile in terms of what you've got embedded. You noticed on the app that I just showed you, some of my profiles, I'm just looking now, are like 6 to 7 megabytes in size. That's not a huge amount. But if you've got tons of videos, and now Ecamm allows you to actually put in full-size videos into the application without changing them to a WebM format. That's one of the big changes. Now, what I noticed when I converted my videos from standard movie to WebM, I thought, hey, it's going to compress them, it's going to make them smaller. No, they're exactly the same size. So I don't think you're going to change in terms of sort of your mileage may vary when you're throwing large videos into your profiles. But I think from my experience, the more profile scenes that you have in your profile, the more files that you have associated with them, large graphics, video files, music, because some music files, for example, I used to have a big streaming music file embedded into Ecamm. That streaming MP3 was 1.2 gig. So, that can get strange. Martin, what's your opinion on sizes of files and things like that?
I've had some massive profiles, tons of videos in them, and I've never noticed any lagging at all, ever. However, what does happen is it takes ages for that profile to load up. So if you swap profiles, you go and get a cup of tea while you're waiting for the profile to load back up if it's got lots of stuff in. And it will load everything into memory as well, as far as I'm aware. So potentially, I guess you could get lagging on a lesser Mac, but mine's a Mac Studio, but entry level Mac Studio from 2 years ago now. But I never have any problems with that at all.
The only time I've seen it is when if you're switching scenes that have lots of live motion in them, maybe there's some background graphics going on, which are also motion graphics and some other things. I have noticed that it'll stutter a little bit. Now I've got an M1 Mac Studio, like same as Martin. Mine's about 4 or 5 years old now, 32 gig of RAM. And it does also matter what you've actually got running on your system at the same time. I know you're a Logic user, you do music production, Dragon, so I know that potentially having all these things consuming certain resources on your system could be problematic. So that's something worth noting. Maybe a question for you here coming up, Martin. So James, hi James, hope you're doing well. Just one thing he's noticed: if you have a ribbon that loops and you record to edit in another software and you edit out sections, the ribbon will jump. Only notice that. Are you talking about when you're recording something with a video loop on it and then you start doing some other edits? I'm not sure.
Yeah, will do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you experienced that? Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about that other than add the ribbon in afterwards in the edit. So if you've got 2 clips where the ribbon's doing that, and then you clip out 3 seconds, you're going to notice it do that at some point. So yeah.
Okay.
There's absolutely nothing you can do about that other than add in that ribbon in your final edit afterwards without it being in the original copy.
We've got a few more comments and questions to get through. Please put your comments and questions in. We're happy to hang on for another sort of 15 minutes or so as well. I say that not asking Martin first, his dinner may be getting burnt, but I'm okay for at least 15 minutes or so. And let us know in the comments as well what kind of topics you'd like us to talk about. You know, we have lots of different knowledge in various different things. I would love for the audience to give us more insights around what they're looking for, as opposed to me and Martin coming up with ideas about topics and things like that. We'd love to provide more value to you and give you some insights on some of our experiences with things. So if there's a particular topic that you're interested in, it doesn't necessarily have to be to live streaming. You know, I'm not a great snooker player or 10-pin bowler, so that's not going to happen. But anything to do with technology and things like that, please, you're very welcome to put comments in and ask us some thoughts around how we could frame a show on a particular topic. And if you want to be a guest on the show, all you got to do is ask. You can come on, join us on Zoom, have a bit of a natter. Let's keep the questions going. Okay, so Rob says, as a non-LinkedIn streamer, do you find consistent audience or solid numbers growth? He does camping and 4-wheel drive content, so LinkedIn isn't for me, just curious. It's a bit, I don't know. I mean, it's a bit hit and miss. I can't comment right now. We've had one person who's joined us on LinkedIn and has had a comment. So thank you, Tanya, for that. But it depends, right? Because the audience on LinkedIn is a more professional audience. They might not be interested in Ecamm, but they could be very interested on how to look presentable on camera, how to present their workshops and online sessions more productively. Maybe not interested in the frills, maybe just want to get down and understand a little bit more about workflows. But our experience is we've had some engagement on LinkedIn. It depends what you post. But Martin, you've been posting consistently on LinkedIn for a while. What's your thoughts?
It's night and day, actually, in terms of if you are streaming about
the wrong one.
That's what happens when you work with children and animals.
There you go. Stop it.
And so it's night and day. We've done lots of stuff on LinkedIn, and quite often there's hardly anybody watches. People don't go back to LinkedIn to look for video content. That's one thing. But I did some stuff recently which was business related, nothing to do with live streaming, and we got something like 20 people on the live, but 200 watches on the replay within a few days. Whereas that is massively more than we ever get on LinkedIn, purely on LinkedIn. Our audience is nearly always on YouTube. So LinkedIn, people are just not looking to LinkedIn for, and it's terrible at searching for content as well.
Yeah.
So if you go onto LinkedIn and you want to find a video content, it's not going to show you anything really if you're in the search, not separately. And then if you go back to old videos, it loses the thumbnails for them and things like that. It is a pretty hopeless platform from that perspective. But we keep trying in the hope that one day they'll get their act together, because they've been focusing on video for a long time, allegedly, but they don't seem to have really got their act together in terms of being able to discover content, or, for instance, if you've watched this video, you might be interested in the following next video. They've got the biggest database in the world to be able to give you exact positioning for what you want to see. They've got Microsoft behind them. They've got more AI than you can shake a stick at, and they still don't seem to be able to do something as simple as that.
No, they don't.
So
they don't. I've just put the link in the description and in the chat, excuse me, for Martin's profile. I'll also put that in there for the Ecamm Profile Manager if you want to grab yourself a copy of that. We're coming close to the end. Let me just see if there's any more questions. Please put your questions in there. Some people left already, but I think Rob was saying that you'll be fine with what you got, 48 gig of RAM. I mean, Rob also mentioned that he had like this ridiculous profile, 112 scenes with videos, 112 scenes. Wow. Okay. That's a lot of work. And I agree with you here, Rob, what you mentioned real quick about the whole comments overlay. Sometimes they go a little bit awry, as you've seen today, like one was placed over here, one was placed down there. And I think it all depends on whether your scenes are locked as well. That has a disadvantage. I've put mine at the moment in showing all scenes, so they should be the same across there. But yeah, I'm happy. Maybe we should sort of do a little bit of Ecamm fundamentals or sort of streaming fundamentals in the future, some sort of shorter shows that just target a specific topic, and let people sort of be worried about that. Let's see, there's a few more comments coming in. Thank you, Scott, as always. We must have you back on the show to talk about what you're up to. It was fun hanging out with you on Alex's workshop, talking about TV shows that we like to watch and various other things as well. So it's all good. Maybe we should have a show about that. All right, last call. Any questions? I'll give it 20 seconds because you know what it's like.
Yeah. I need to go pick a car up.
Oh, you need to pick a car up. Sorry about that. Okay, well, see, you just say, Neil, I haven't got any time. All right. I don't think you've seen another Ecamm stream where the streamer didn't. I don't think you've seen this thing. I don't follow that.
Well, on that note.
Okay. I'm not 100% sure what that was. Saeed, it's always a pleasure. Oh, and Rob says on the comments issue, I shouldn't lock my scenes, so it might be on Sunday. Okay. Yeah, don't lock the scenes. That's the main thing, because if you do lock the scenes, things break, which I found as well. It's a pleasure to have everybody here. Oh, there we go. He said, I don't think I've ever seen a single stream where the streamer didn't just, yeah. That's right. So there's a few quirks with that. I've actually used Social Stream Ninja as well. But anyway, brilliant hour. Thank you so much for your time. Rob, thanks for joining us in Australia. And
thanks for watching, guys.
Everybody who's been here as well. And look forward to seeing you next time. I don't know whether this is a good time, actually, to keep this running on Friday around 4 or 5 o'clock. Maybe. Martin and I will have a chat anyway. With that, thanks for joining us. It's been a while. It's so wonderful to be back. Thanks for all your support as ever. And we'll see you on the next show. Until then, take it easy.